Hi there, knife people. Hello, lady and gentlemen. I'm excited. We're in my lab today to finally find out if the knives equipped with MagnaCut blades and named salt or water can actually withstand an accelerated corrosion test in accordance with the ASTM B117. What is ASTM B117?
It's a worldwide guidance by which ASTM International, formerly known as American Society for Testing and Materials, standardizes corrosion resistance test.
So that any manufacturer who claims corrosion resistance has a standardized way to show
whether it's true or not
using salt spray or salt fog chamber. What it does, it accelerates the corrosion.
Time to see what the equivalent of being on your boat or near salt body of water for a prolonged period of time would do to your knife.
I started this test 24 hours ago to a minute. And now we're going to find out what these four knives look like.
From left to right.
Spyderco Native Salt. Benchmade Water Adira full size. Benchmade Bugout as a control sample to show you what a non-MagnaCut knife would look like after this test. And finally, MKM Yipper.
Also with MagnaCut blade. For some reason I decided to cut the knives down on camera. And I know it looks awfully awkward in the video. But while you're watching this, let me remind you that mine is a channel that does not affiliate with any knife making or selling companies. The best 3 ways to help me grow and sustain the channel are subscribing, hitting like or sharing the link to the video, or purchasing a super thanks.
Before the test, I did not degrease the test subjects because I wanted to approximate the real life use of the knives. But I did wipe the blades with a microfiber cloth, so I believe the knives are representatives of how they would live on your boat. And this is what Spyderco salt looks like. Basically, let me wash down the salt deposits if there are any. I believe I can get rid of this. First examination, I see nothing. The test procedure allows me to dry the test subjects before closely examining them for corrosion. So I see nothing. Do you? I don't. Next, that on the rack or inside that chamber was Benchmade Water Adira. So let's take a look before the wash down. A couple spots on the blade. And I don't see much else except for the clip. The pocket clip has some kind of brown beige deposit.
Or dare I say, rust.
So that wash down is water at the room temperature and low pressure, no spray is being followed here. So I'm interested in what this looks like on the pocket clip.
Oh, it's definitely rust.
And on the blade, when I dry it, the discolorations aren't disappearing. Not much around the thumb studs, potentially because they could be titanium. I have not dug into this rabbit hole. Okay, but there's some significant discolorations on the blade. And it looks like a condensate, the salty condensate was dripping down the blade. Formed a droplet here and drifted down. Next on the rack was my poor good old Bugout. That's a standard, most basic Bugout. made with S30V steel, and it is not being claimed as a salt or ocean or water series knife, but it's being advertised as a knife for an avid outdoorsman. So as long as the avid outdoorsman is not anywhere near salt water, and by the way, I used 1% salt fog as opposed to the ASTM B117 requiring 5 plus or minus 1%. Because Dr. Laren Thomas, in his article about MagnaCut, used 1% salt solution to test various steels. And then finally, I have an MKM Yipper, which is also advertised as an all-around EDC slash outdoor lightweight, good competitor to Bugout actually, and also made with MagnaCut steel. And as you can see, out of MagnaCut knives, this one shows the most discoloration on the blade, inside the crossbar lock cavities there. Before I disassemble it, if I had to guess, it's either the Omega spring corroding or there's some kind of reaction, galvanic corrosion reaction between the bearings. This knife runs on the bearings and the liner. And then what you see here is condensation forming into droplets and pouring down the blade. So what we are going to do next is show you these knives side by side. I'm going to change the order from worst to best. So you can see that the sort of the baseline sample of stainless but not MagnaCut steel, a prolithic S30V, that's how it fared. The steel itself looks like it was corroding under the condensation droplets. Very similar situation with MKM, and as you can see, their laser etching actually sort of breaks the surface of the metal. The way they etch is deep and hot, so the composition of the metal on that surface will be varied from the rest of the knife. And you can see on both sides, this side was probably more exposed to the flow of fog, and this side a little less, but you can see right here, you can see that laser etching is not helpful in this respect. And we have corrosion on the tip because it looks like condensate was accumulating. Adira has a lot less staining, and their laser etch, or whichever way they probably chemically etched their logo on this knife, I don't know, I'm speculating, but the metal composition is not damaged in their process, and so the corrosive staining did not form around the logo, nor anywhere else on the knife except for the pocket clip. What is a surprise to me is that there are screws and other hardware looks to be unscathed, but I will verify all this when I take the knives apart. So it's not over. And I see absolutely zero, zilch, nada on Spyderco native salt. So just from this observation, this is a true salt series knife. This is coming pretty close, not so much, and I wouldn't take this anywhere near salt water or very humid environment. Some of my viewers commented that they recently purchased Spyderco Man X2 salt. I have not had a chance to obtain that one yet, so just to head off discussion and speculation, this knife has fewer dissimilar metals in its construction because it's a simpler lock than the crossbar lock. Now, That said, something about the heat treat here, the blade itself did not get stained at all, even though throughout the experiment I could see accumulation droplets uh, dripping down the blade. So if I had to make a pretty now educated guess, this log bar is also MagnaCut. Good job, Spyderco. I'm very impressed. Now this guy, Water by Benchmade, obviously a more complex design from just part count and dissimilar metals perspective. And I am also pleasantly surprised because I was actually expecting some more corrosion coming or emanating from the crossbar lock itself. I was also concerned about anodizing reacting with salt on the aluminum spacer. When I did similar tests, less scientific, but similar tests with Narrows last year, I can link this video right here. Anyway, when I did the similar tests with Narrows, these thumb studs, the anodizing came off or was discolored to almost black and flaking in places. Not happening here. So like I said, the only concern I have is with the pocket clip, and that's truly not a huge deal, but still at these prices, they could have done better. So what they could have done better is provide a polished stainless steel clip without this finish. I think the finish itself is reacting. The Yipper. I think the Yipper was a little bit more of a disappointment. Otherwise, it was a good knife. I got lucky and I got the version without an issue with a axis lock allowing the blade strike the spacers in a closed position, which is a well-known issue and admitted by the company. So on this one, it's the opposite. The pocket clip looks perfect and
Kind of proves my point that polished stainless steel
is better for salt environments. The hardware and the handle, everything looks great. I think there's some reaction, or so what we call galvanic reaction, going on between the bearing. It runs on bearings, and bearings are made out of brass, as opposed to bronze washers on the Benchmade. All Benchmade washers are bronze. Brass reacts much more actively with ferrous materials than the bronze. For example, bronze is used in aircraft when you combining mechanism made out of steel, aluminum, and some kind of friction mitigation is required. That's where the bronze phosphate is a good material to prevent galvanic corrosion. I'm rambling and digressing, but this is my field. So, and of course, the side of the Bugout that was exposed the most didn't fare so well. However, strangely enough, the pocket clip, which has a much more smooth finish than the one on the Adira, let me put them side by side. This is a Benchmade deep pocket carry clip. Which is, and I'm not sure what they call each of these coatings. Feel free to write in a comment if you know and what the difference is. But yeah, so that blade didn't fare very well, so some penetrating oil will be required to remove some of this corrosion. Now, do I think either one of these three blades is damaged beyond repair? I don't think so. But if you are an avid sort of waterman and you have a knife on the boat in a drawer, like normal people would, and you leave it on the boat, this test, this 24 hours in a salt fog chamber, represents weeks of a normal exposure on the boat. So go ahead, tell me that you're going to, clean and lubricate the knife before you leave the boat, right? As if you didn't have to shore up the boat, clean it, move all the crap off the boat onto the dock, and then also help your slightly inebriated friends to the pier. You just simply won't even think about the knife in the drawer or even in your pocket. You're gonna forget, and it's going to rust. So far, the takeaway: if you have a knife that you want to leave on the boat permanently, Spyderco salt. Period. End of story. But not the end of the video. So let's admit it, most of my viewers were predominantly interested in comparing Benchmade Water series to Spyderco Salt. Everything else in this video was to set the baseline of what a basic, not water-rated MagnaCut knife will do, and what a basic outdoor-rated but not specifically tuned for salt water environment knife can do. I'm gonna set them aside for now, and talk about these two a little bit. Actually, there's not much to talk, as I stated, about Spyderco. There's no tricks here. I don't have a second Spyderco somewhere, that got all corroded. What I'm here to do is establish, did Benchmade hit the mark here? Time to take the load off and sit down and talk about what it all means. What it means is, I don't know. Here's why. There's no good way to correlate the results of a 24-hour ASTM B117 salt spray or salt fog test to the real world. And the reason is because there's not two places that are alike in terms of salt concentration in the air in the world. I'll throw a map here. Take a look. It shows the entire world, and anywhere where you see any color, that means there is salt in the air present. But it doesn't mean that it's present in the amounts that will immediately corrode your knife. The areas to watch out would be low-lying areas of intercoastal East Coast United States, some areas in Northern California, in Central California, slightly inland from the ocean, where the marine layer rolls in. If you live in California, you know what I'm talking about. Obviously, state of Washington as well. When you have that daily, twice daily fog rolling in from the sea inland and accumulating there with less wind, that's where that you should watch out. Salt concentrations in the air could be found up to 50 miles inland. And obviously, fewer wind gusts will mean more salt concentration. But regular marine layer roll-ins would mean more salt concentration. So basically, the test is great to compare one steel to another, one knife to another, but it's not great in predicting how long it will last if you don't clean it. If you live more than 50 miles away from a salty water, don't worry about it. Buy whatever knife. If you live closer, buy either salt or water, Adira, any of the salt series, and just keep an eye on it. Focus on ergonomics. Focus on how it feels in your hand, on your vest or in your pocket, and don't worry about all this stuff. This wasn't too bad at all. As you can see, the knife was hanging vertically. Condensation was forming on the blade and dripping down, accumulating a little bit at the tip. The knife has not been resharpened. So the important takeaway here is it didn't do too bad. Not at all. As I mentioned earlier, it was not degreased, but nor was it oiled. This video is already pretty long, so I am not going to show a full disassembly today. It's a subject for the next video. What I'm doing here is I'm applying penetrating oil that is specifically formulated to penetrate rust. And I'm going to let the knife sit like this for another 24 hours or so. And then I am going to disassemble the knife and see if there's any internal damage. I'm especially concerned about how did aluminum spacer fared in this equation. Also, you should be able to see how well the penetrating oil performs in removing surface rust. And I hope that will be of value to everybody too. Meanwhile, I'd like to know your likes and dislikes on this video, any questions that it evoked, and if you have any requests to test other knives.